Hey everybody, it's your girl Natalie and I'm back with another video. Today is going to be a story time, but I think the overall theme that I want to convey is... Alright, so before we start the video, this is Editing Natalie and don't mind the environment, okay? I'm literally editing this in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and we're living for it because it's giving me inspiration. But anyways, I just wanted to let y'all know that the events from this video are actually in 2023, but it starts from the end of 2023, I think around October to November. However, a bulk of the video spans into 2024, but those events really made my 2024. The second thing is, please be mindful that I was supposed to film this video in April of 2024. We're in December of 2024. So it just really goes to show kind of like where my mindset was. A lot of it has been fear of being vulnerable and just putting my story out there. A lot of it is the fact that I know that this video was gonna be super long and I didn't know who was gonna watch this or indulge in this. So I just kind of told myself, F it. And the treat that I have of 2024 going into 2025 is basically just putting out this video, allowing it to touch whoever it needs to touch, and not worrying about it no more. But anyways, thank y'all for watching and let's get on with the story. So I'm also gonna be looking down because I have notes. It has been a rough couple months. I am at a point in my life where I basically have lost everything. And it's so interesting because it has been so freeing, but it has also been so absolutely terrifying. So I want to take y'all back to when I had everything. Just to set the scene, I had just gotten out of a 4-year long-term relationship. I moved out of the house. I was living with one of my good girlfriends, who then became my roommate at the time. I was leaving Pennsylvania. I had really tried to figure out where I wanted to go. I was very nervous because I really wanted to like stay close to my mom. My dad had passed away and I'm an only child. So, it was very important to me to stay in communication with my mom, stay in communication with my grandmother, who is my last living grandparent, who is my dad's mother. And so, a lot of, even though they probably didn't realize it, a lot of that stuff was like weighing on my mind. But needless to say, I had made the plunge of moving from the north all the way down to the south. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And to be quite honest with you, like, I was so nervous because being a introvert that also has social anxiety, like I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I gonna make friends? Am I gonna get out the house? All this, that, and the third. But needless to say, I really believed in myself and I believed in my intuition and the process, and I prayed about things. And, I had just made the move. Everything was set up for me so well. Like, you cannot tell me anything. So before I ended up moving to North Carolina, I had gotten a new job, paid twice as much as my last job. I had more autonomy. I had unlimited PTO. Like, it was really just amazing. And the group of people that I worked with were just amazing. I 100% loved my job. I never even knew that you could love a job like I loved my job. Like, I was just on top of the world. I had also gotten a new car. At the time, I had a dog, and I had him for about 4 years. I adopted him with my ex, so I had taken him from that previous relationship. So, I was moving with my dog, I had a new car, I had a new job, like, and then I had like a brand new apartment, and you could like see the sky. Like, you could see, if anybody knows Charlotte, you could see uptown, you could see the skyline. Like, you could not, baby, like, you could not tell me anything. You could genuinely not tell me anything. Like, I was living my best life, my absolute best life. And I was really proud of myself because, you know, people that know me and just knowing myself, I come from a very hard background, being in a position where I could make a good amount of money, support myself, and just, you know, really live independently. I was so over the moon. Like, I was genuinely just so over the moon. So, the first couple months that I was living there, it was very hard for me because my dog had very, very bad social anxiety. And then he was also a pit bull terrier. And for anybody that has pit bull terriers, you know how hard it is to find housing without breed restrictions. And the apartment that I was in, it did have breed restrictions, but I had subletted from somebody who also had a dog. So it was very easy for me to just kind of like, you know, like swap their dog in for my dog. And so there was still a fear in the back of my head, just of like, oh my gosh, is anybody gonna find out? Is he barking too loud? Because if I left for like 2 seconds, he just would like howl and bark. Like he was not good with like being by himself. And so the first couple of months that I was there, it was really hard, and I just kind of felt stuck to my apartment. The good thing was, again, really loved my apartment, like gorgeous skyline, like gorgeous views. But you know, like you just want to go out and do stuff when you're in a new city, like you want to go explore. So, you know, because I was having a hard time with my dog and everything, I would end up going back to my hometown, which is Maryland, a lot to go visit my mom. And like I had mentioned before, there was a worry that, you know, I would constantly think about her and think about my grandmother. So I did make sure to go back and visit her regularly. Um, Also, she had had some health ailments going on that encouraged me more to go visit her. Child, I moved in October, and then, you know, November and December was coming, so the holidays were here. Girl, the way I done spent like the whole 2 months at my mom's house because I didn't want to go back home. And I just don't know what it was. I mean, I do think half of it was like I couldn't go out because of the dog. But I also think the other half was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a new city and I just want my mommy. Um, and it was just a lot going on. But, you know, I would sit there and be like, oh my gosh, you know, like at least I have my mom, at least I have my dog. You know, I would try to, you know, keep the grateful train running in my head. As I continue to be at my mom's house, I do end up staying to Thanksgiving. And, you know, I just kind of say, like, shoot, let me just, you know, stay up until Christmas because there's really no need to drive back and forth, being as all of the holidays are piled up at the end of the year. So I end up staying through Christmas as well. However, Christmas Day was the scariest day for me, the absolute scariest day. It was a very normal day, you know, just chilling at the house, just keeping to myself. And all of a sudden, when my mom had come in from work, my dog is laying on the dog bed that we have like in her bedroom. And all of a sudden, he just looks at me and freezes, and he just kind of like his whole body had like stiffened, and then he just pees like all over his dog bed. And I literally screamed, like I had like the most worst like blood curdling scream ever. And my mom like runs in and she's like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? And I'm like, no, like Brutus is like, I don't know what's wrong with him. And so we look over and like the whole bed is just soiled, like soiled with his pee. And she's just like, is he okay? Like, can he move? And I'm just staring at him, and Brutus is staring back at us, and like he's just there in his pee, like still stiff and just cannot move. I'm like, I'm Googling stuff. I don't really know what's going on. And then eventually I call like the free like vet, like it's like a vet nurse line, if anybody knows or has ever called it. And I'm describing the symptoms, and one person, it was so weird. There was a man that I had talked to, and he basically was just like, oh, you know, kind of give it 24 hours and, you know, see if he's better tomorrow. And me and my mom are kind of just like, no, I think like he's not like at this point, like Brutus is not moving. He is not moving. He is not moving. He's just covered in his pee, and I'm confused. So I end up calling another lady and I described these symptoms, and she's like, I think he had a stroke. Please take him to the emergency room like right now. And in my head, I'm just like, are you for real? Like, this is legit crazy, you know, especially because it's Christmas Day and like my mom just got off work and everything. And she was like, you know what? Like, you know, let's take him. I had to like wrap towels because again, he's still drenched in his pee. So like I think what I did is like we wrapped towels around him and then eventually like picked him up, got him in my car, and then we drove him to like the nearest emergency room. This is like nearing the end of COVID, but procedures still, you know, were in place. So we couldn't physically go into the vet office. They just told us that somebody would come outside. They talked to us, masks on, and then basically had opened the truck and she ended up scooping Brutus, and then, you know, they proceeded to look at him. And so we were just sitting there, you know, in my car, just being trying to figure stuff out. I'm like panicking and I ended up calling my ex because I had gotten this dog while we were together and we were still friends at the time. And so I would definitely update him about my life, the dog, etc. So I'm literally there just bawling and I'm just like, Brutus isn't doing well. I don't know if he's gonna make it, this and the third. And, you know, he's just like comforting me and is just like, you know, it's gonna be okay, this and the third. So, you know, after a while, a few more like I want to say like 30 minutes pass and the vet calls and they're like, yeah, your dog has a tumor in his stomach basically. And I got a little frustrated at the vet, which I understood what angle she was coming from, but she basically had told me that he has a tumor in his stomach. They could do tests and perform like a surgery to try to get it out. However, she gave me a very roundabout way of saying, no matter what you do, he's not going to make it out alive. Because he had the stroke, and he had the stroke 2 times. When we were on the phone with that man, he ended up having another stroke, which then like preceded us to call the lady. And so she was like, you know, he's not really going to get out of that state. Like his brain is like gone. So she basically was like, you can either euthanize him or you can try to keep him alive, but he's not going to be functioning. So it's like either way, like he's gone. Like he's gone. And I am bawling. I am genuinely bawling. Guys, I don't know if you've ever lost a pet, but like he is a very old dog, so you know, I always had thought about that. Um Especially when he had his first cancer scare, but like it was a lot. It was a lot. Um, so I had went ahead, told her to euthanize him. They did offer us to go in and, you know, be with him while he was getting euthanized. So my mom and I went in and we saw him. He was in the same position that we wrapped him up in before, like he did not move. Um, I don't even know if his tail was moving, to be honest. His eyes were moving and he would, if anybody has a dog, you know how they make little grunts, like he would make little grunts. So because of his mannerisms, I knew he was excited to see me. And oh my god, I did not think I'd cry on this, making this video. But no, he he knew it was me, and um he was happy to see me, and it made me feel better about being there because I really didn't want to be there. But I wanted to be with him until the end. So my mom and I were there. I held his little paw. They euthanized him and he was gone. And guys, that broke me. Oh my goodness, that broke me. It absolutely broke me. Absolutely broke me. I told my mom, I was like, I'm not doing the holidays this year. I was like, I am not doing the holidays this year. Next day, because we got back home at like 1, something like that. It was Christmas. And I was like, I'm going to be laying in your bed playing Sims. I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to go to anybody's house. I don't want to eat food. Like, I don't want to, like, why am I celebrating? So yeah, that hurt. And honestly, like, I was so happy that I had my mom comforting me. My best friend and her previous girlfriend, were there to comfort me for the next couple of days. But there was just a certain point where I was like, I just got to go back home. And so I went back home to North Carolina. It was tragic because I had left with me and my dog. I even the new car that I bought, I needed a new car, but the type of car that I bought, which is a van, I bought it because of him, because we would do these long drives and he'd have to come with me because he's my child, or he was my child. Beforehand, I had a Honda Accord and he looked so uncomfortable being in the back seat. So the car that I got is this really nice van. The trunk is super huge and I like padded the whole back just so when we did the rides to North Carolina, he would have like such like a comfortable plush little place to like sleep and hang out and do all the things. Driving back, knowing that the car I bought was for him, knowing that I wanted to get a house in a year so that he could have a yard, coming back to all of his toys, the bowl, guys, it crushed me. It absolutely crushed my soul. And it took a while. I want to say it maybe took like 2 or 3 months to get to a point where I felt like I could properly live again. Like I could properly move in the world and not feel like I was just drowning all the time. For anybody that says that it's stupid or it's not normal to grieve a pet, like F them, because that animals in general are your children. He literally was my son. I literally would call him my son. If there was a male brown pit bull version of me, it would be him. I really felt like he was my spirit animal. Like that's how I felt about him. So yeah. And I think by the time I moved on, I think it was like around January, February, during that time, I did push myself to, go out more. Cause again, I was working from home and I didn't know anybody. So I was doing Bumble BFF, I was going out, I was trying to figure out stuff that was happening in Charlotte. And it's really hard to admit it, but it's like losing Brutus did give me the freedom to explore Charlotte. Did I want him gone? Absolutely not. But, I can't deny the fact that it allowed me more opportunity to explore Charlotte. So that's what I did. And honestly, I don't know what it was about Charlotte, but I just felt so free. I just felt so autonomous. New car, new job, no responsibility. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. And it was just kind of a playground for me to explore. And honestly, I was really just on top of the world. And then the first year had passed. I had gotten some really hard news from my mom little after little after little, I kept hearing, like, she had kept telling me about like allergies. Like, she was like, I have really bad allergies and I'm stopped up and I can't, breathe and stuff like that. And I'd just be over there like, cause I have allergies too. So I'd be like, oh yeah, like, it's not that, it's the pollen and it's not that great because we're in the spring and da 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 da. And I just noticed, like, each time I would visit her, it's like her breathing would get worse, or she'd have to sit elevated, and it would just get like worse and worse and worse and worse. And she would just have incidents where my uncle would call and he would be like, hey, like, she can't breathe. We're taking her to the doctor, this, that, and the third. The crazy thing is, every time we would go to the doctor, because sometimes I would be there for these appointments. Sometimes I'd be in Charlotte. It depended on what month we were in. So during the time that she was having the breathing problems, it was crazy because we kept going to doctors and they kept telling us that she had pneumonia. And so when her shortness of breath kept happening, me and him knew it was getting worse because the durations were a lot shorter. So he would notify me like every 2 weeks or like every month. Like, it would be like month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, week. You know what I mean? And it just kept getting shorter. And he was like, this is just not normal. There was one doctor's visit where they had said that it was pneumonia again. And then my uncle had called me that same night, and he had kind of given me more facts and was like, hey, like, you need to come down because this is what's happening. And I was like, oh snap. So, packed up all my stuff. I think I had flown. I don't think I drove. I got down to Maryland, and that was so scary. Like, I don't know what they had given my mom. Like, my uncle over the phone said it was an antibiotic, and he said that, like, while he was on the phone with her, she was talking and everything was like fine and okay, and then immediately, like, her speech just like slurred and she just wasn't coherent. Like, my uncle did not understand her. So he was like yelling out to a nurse, and the nurse was like, yeah, she's here, everything's fine. And he's like, no, it's not. Like, don't you hear that she's not coherent? And so after work, my uncle went down there and he had told me that she had a small seizure. I don't think it was a stroke because I think strokes are more, there's more after effects. Like, it's harder to kind of like recover from that. So I don't think it was a stroke, but I think it was a very small seizure. And they had tested and found that it was because of the antibiotic that they gave them. For some reason, it just wasn't reacting well to her body, and it gave her a mild seizure. I'm telling you guys, that was the worst feeling of my entire life. Like, when I had entered the room, like, I had like unloaded my bags and then went to the hospital. And when I went to the hospital and I saw her, like, she was awake. Her eyes were wide open, but she wasn't talking. Like, I was like, hey mommy, how are you? And she was like, and I was like, huh? And my uncle like prepped me and everything. But it's one thing when they say something over, it's one thing when somebody says something over the phone, and it's another thing when you're seeing it and it's your mom. You know what I mean? Like, it was awful. It was truly awful. And I was so nervous because but when I had gotten there, I had like, we didn't know why she was like that. We didn't know what happened. And I had stayed, like, I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping properly. I was trying to see if I could sleep at the hospital, but everybody was like, no, please go home. Like, I was so distraught. And The crazy part was that the cute part about that, the only cute part about that, was that I had opened up her phone, because in my head I was like, okay, maybe I could do some things to maybe like get her back. So in her phone, she loved, like, my mom is a big, gospel person. So I was opening up these old Jamaica songs so that I could play them for her. And there was one song that's her jaunt, okay? So I was playing it for her, and I just heard her out of the corner of my eye, and she was just humming. And I was like, oh my God. And guys, I played that jaunt over and over and over, and she just kept humming. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, like, she's not brain dead or whatever. Like, I was like, there's something, you know what I mean? And so after I was spending the time with her and playing her music and reading her scriptures and stuff like that, they had taken her to do a test. They took her, I believe, to do an MRI and a couple other tests. And then the doctor came back in and he said that the seizure was caused by the medicine that they gave her. But the reason why she's still like non-responsive and in this state is because of the kidney failure. It is going to take longer for that medication to basically pass through her body. And so he was like, she should be getting back to normal, but we have to see. And when it's giving, like, we have to see, like, you mad, you packed. Like, my uncle turned up in there because it's like, and another thing about that too is, like, I really do feel like they should, I don't know if they told my mom that they're giving this to her, but I really do feel like hospitals need to tell you what they're giving you, tell you all of the side effects, and then tell like an emergency contact or something like that. I feel like if it's like an emergency, like if you have to give them the medication now, like, do what you have to do. But for her, it's like, I just felt like if you knew that was a side effect, like you should have just read all the things, like you should have read that off to her. I'm just saying, because that entirely pissed me and my family all the way off. The miraculous part was the next day that I came in to visit her, guys, I was bawling like a baby. I came into the hospital and she looked up at me and she was like, hey, Nettie, with her little Jamaican accent. And I was like, mommy. And I was crying. Y'all don't know how good it sounds to hear somebody's voice that you didn't think that you, like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know what was going on. You feel me? And it was everything. It was everything. I was so grateful that like she was in her right state of mind and frame and everything. And the crazy part was she had just went in for pneumonia. And then she came out having a seizure. And the crazy part was she couldn't even fully come out and go back home because the seizure kind of like wore her body down and she was just bedridden for, I think she was bedridden for like 2 or 3 days. So she actually had to be sent to a rehab. She had to learn how to like walk again. Not that she couldn't like fully walk, but she was just so like weak. So it's like, she had to get rehabilitation to walk. And my mom was so like strong. And she was the type of person that like really held it down for everybody. Like everybody came to her with their problems, like needing encouragement, all that stuff. And she was always there for them. So I think to see her kind of on the other side of that, it was just really, it was very new. Part of me was happy that I was able to be a comfort for her because one of the things that I told her, because she was very frustrated about the fact that she couldn't walk because all she was saying is like, girl, I just want to get home. You know what I mean? And I told her, I was like, every day is another step. You know what I mean? Every day you work harder and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going until you get to where you want to be. And, you know, I kept telling her that. I kept reading her scriptures. I kept praying with her. And, you know, it got to the point where, listen, one thing about my mama, she's determined. Like, I would walk in visiting her from like in the rehab, and the nurses were like, she walking up and down this with the walker. She doing this, she doing that. Like, baby, she was determined to get out of that place. And she did it. It happened like in November. So I think she got out, I think a little bit before Thanksgiving, I want to say, because we thought she was going to stay in during Thanksgiving, but she had gotten out like a little bit before Thanksgiving. And then I remember I took her to my aunt's house for Thanksgiving because a whole bunch of our family came to visit her because of what happened. So I had got to spend that Thanksgiving and that Christmas with her, but it was just really, really hard because that moment was kind of like the beginning of the decline. And it took one doctor, one doctor. Shout out to the doctor at the University of Maryland, I think it was. There was one doctor that had her 2 times. So she went to the ambulance twice, and in the same time, he had treated her two times. And I guess from his notes, he had seen like, hey, I gave her medication for pneumonia and she's not doing better. Let's test her for these other things. And then he had drew like fluid out of her body, and he was like, let's see if this is cancerous. And I believe I was there for that, but during the results, I had to go back to North Carolina. And when I called to follow up, she told me that she had lung cancer. And when I asked her, okay, you know, like, do you know how severe? She told me it was stage 4. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was taking a walk and I was like, I was gagged. Cause you know, you hear stage 4 and it's like, you know, and I asked, I was like, is there a surgery that you have to do? Cause I don't know anything about lung cancer. When I lived in Pennsylvania, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and also she had kidney failure, so she was on dialysis treatment. I am not new to all things dialysis. My father had dialysis when he had started dialysis, or had kidney failure when I was like in middle school going into high school. So when I found that out, I was sad about it and I was a little confused because I am not gonna hold you. I love my daddy so bad, but he did not have the best lifestyle and eating habits. My mom, on the other hand, did. So I was very shocked when I heard about it. However, she did suffer from high blood pressure, and that is something that, you know, you do have to look out for as a side effect to certain medications, or certain vitals and stuff like that you have to get checked up on. I was worried, but they all seemed managed. You know what I mean? For the kidney stuff, you just go to dialysis, you're good. And then for the breast cancer, she had a surgery. They had come back and said that they had no longer seen, you know, any cancerous cells or any lumps or anything. And she had gotten her checkups done every 6 months, either 6 months or annually. Sorry, I can't remember. I believe it was 6 months though. But she had gotten them done. She had gotten them done regularly, and you know, that was managed. It was fine. It was scary when it happened. It was scary when the surgery happened. But again, they found no cancer. She was getting her checkups. It was fine. So to hear that she was hit with the lung cancer, like, it hurt. It hurt heavy. Talking to her and talking to my uncle, they had said, no, there's nothing that they could do, because this is fluid. It's not anything that can require a surgery. I think at the time it was also kind of like spreading a little bit too. And I had asked her, like, what are we gonna do? And she was like, I'm gonna fight it. Watching the decline is absolutely crazy. It's so devastating, and it really changes you. It changes the person that is ill. It changes you. It changes how you think of things, how you see the world. It really genuinely changes your mindset. And I think what a lot of people don't talk about too is like, even though the person is alive, you were grieving so many things. Like, I remember I used to be so happy thinking and seeing when my mom retired, because I thought I would get to do all these things with her, and I would take her to all these places and stuff like that. And I feel like the hard part was, I couldn't take her to where I wanted to take her because of like the dialysis and trying to figure out, facilities and everything. But also, like, at that stage, she, it like the lung cancer got to the point where like she couldn't even leave the house. Like we had a condo that was on the basement, and you have to like walk up the stairs to like exit the condo. And her getting up the stairs was just so difficult. The crazy part was, like, after she got out of the rehab, like she was doing really good. Like, she was zipping up and down the stairs. She was driving herself to dialysis. She sent, like, I was in North Carolina. She sent me pictures of her getting her hair done, her nails done. Like, she was living life, and I was so happy for her. But then there was just a decline. And it got to the point where we had to get a catheter for her because there was just more fluid that was being like retained in her body that was then not allowing her to breathe properly. And so my uncle had to, like, I would order the catheters because he didn't really know how to do that, and then he would, like, take the fluid out so we wouldn't have to drive her back and forth to the hospital all the time. My bad, y'all, the charger died. I have to pick up from where I left off. Well, what was I saying? After the whole diagnosis and everything, it had gotten to the point where, honestly, I wasn't even really living in Charlotte anymore. My uncle was living with her for a while. He had been living with her, I want to say, like, maybe 2 or 3 years after my dad had passed. My uncle would call and update me about things, like if he had to take her to the hospital or if she was sick. We kept in very close communication, so that he could, give me updates on her health. I would call her regularly. That would just kind of be our pattern while I was out of state. But while I was in Charlotte for that final year, it was getting noticeable that my uncle would keep calling and like, the calls were getting frequent, very frequent. At that point, I was very worried. Mind you, I would do month on and month off of seeing her. So for instance, if I saw her in January, I would be in Charlotte in February, and then I'd see my mom in March. And when I'm talking March, I'm talking I'd see her for the whole month of March. And then I'd go back and be in Charlotte in April, and then I'd see her for the whole month of June. So it wouldn't be like, I would just hear things and worry about it in like a bubble. Like, I was consistently traveling from Charlotte to Maryland, Charlotte to Maryland, Charlotte to Maryland, to make sure she was good, help my uncle with appointments and stuff like that. So it just got to the point where I really had to sit with myself and say, I have to come back home, because it's interesting, because I have felt this with my father's death as well, where at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that I did everything I could for the person that I love. And I always hold that with me. And I felt like with my mom, I felt like I just needed to be back home. I felt like I needed to help her. I felt like I also needed to help my uncle, you know what I mean? And so that's what I did. And during this time, everything wasn't like all that bad because during this time in the beginning of the year, my job actually had like a trip planned for us, and it was my first time going overseas. And basically, I think I had went around May, June. So I had spent that whole month, or not month, I'm sorry. I had spent those whole first couple months in the beginning of the year, you know, dog sitting and saving up a whole bunch of money because I was trying to save up for the trip. It was hard though, because like I said, sometimes I'd have to cancel things because I'd have to like, you know, go see my mom or help out and stuff like that. But again, I was like, I've never been outside the country, so I hope and I pray that, you know, like I'm able to do what I want to do. Also, I'm not gonna hold you. I went really big. Like we had the company trip was to Prague, and I was like, baby, like you're not just gonna send me to Europe and let me just go to Prague. So I went to a couple different places, and it was amazing. Um, but one of the really big ones was I wanted to visit London, and it hurt going there because my mom had always wanted to go to London. Fortunately, in 2019, I was blessed enough to take her to the Bahamas, and we had so much fun. And this was before her like dialysis diagnosis, or sorry, kidney failure diagnosis, and you know having to do like dialysis and everything. So, girl, we had a ball, you know. Um, but I had also wanted to take her to London, and it just I was happy to go for the both of us. Like I brought her back all these gifts, but like, child, it just hurt that I wasn't, you know, able to take her, and it was difficult. So, you know, it wasn't all bad within that year. Going to Europe definitely was fun. I definitely still felt like that girl, you know, even though I was, you know, still battling and going through a lot of the internalized, I would say grief of being a caregiver, essentially watching my mom disintegrate before my eyes. Um, but again, there was still joy in some of the activities that I was doing. My lease was up in April of 2024. Actually, we're in April right now, so the lease would have been up right now. And I'm not gonna hold you, I was freaking out because after I come back from my trip, it really just felt like, you know, again, my mom kept, like, she just kept disintegrating. I feel like there's a better word for that, but that's what's in my head right now. But she just, you know, she kept going downhill. And I had decided I was like, I have to move back because my uncle was drowning in caregiver duties while also working. And, you know, he needed help, and my mom needed help. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna move back. And so, girl, I was so stressed during this time because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to find I don't know how I'm gonna find the money to like basically break my lease. And I was trying to save money. Like I had some money saved up, but I also needed to save up money not only to break my lease, but to also move my stuff across state. And I was annoyed because I was like, this is the same situation I was in when I was trying to move to North Carolina, and you know now I'm struggling again. Um, so I honestly just gave it to God because I was like, I don't know what to do. And the crazy part was I had put my apartment up on Facebook Marketplace, and it was like scammers and like spam and all that stuff. But I was about to break my lease. There was this man that had reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, like I'm looking to, you know, get your place real quick. are you able to like, you know, hand it off in October, this and the third? And I was like, oh yeah. So I took a chance with him because like, I'm telling y'all, like I was really about to write the check and write the email to send to my leasing office. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out in faith and trust this man. I don't know what had me trust him, but I did. But he was maybe in my place for 10 minutes with his friend and was like, yeah, I'll take it. And I was like, huh? And I'm skeptical. So I was like, I ain't gonna believe this until he signed everything and the leasing office is like, okay, it's his at this certain time. But he kept in communication with me. He sent them the money. You know, I had everything cleaned for him and stuff like that. And it was really smooth. And honestly, I was like, that ain't nothing but God. Like it really was like to me, I feel like that was God. At the end of October, I had given up my apartment. I had moved my stuff by myself. Um, I had moved into this new place in November, and I only really had a couple days to like unpack and get myself settled in because and this was another blessing. Fortunately, my aunts from Jamaica were able to get visas and come over and help my mom, like help me and my uncle help my mom and also visit her. Mind you, they had not seen her in like over 6 years, I want to say. And they were just getting their visas right when me and my uncle needed them because I mind you, I think I had stayed for like a month or two to caregive and help her. And it was hard because I'm not gonna hold you, like I was having panic attacks, like I was not getting enough sleep, I was eating crazy because you know I basically kind of had to like wake up, cook her meals, take her, like I had to do a lot of stuff. So I just was neglecting myself and my mental health, and I was drowning. And then I was working from home, but to be honest, I wasn't even working because I had to do so. Again, I had to cook her meals in the morning. I had to take her to dialysis. I was doing all this in between meetings. And then um, sometimes I'd have to take my lunch breaks and go grocery shopping, or I'd have to run errands for her. And it was just a lot. It was a lot. And I started doing that like right as I moved in. Like I had like maybe 2 or 3 days to unpack. On that third day, my aunts had to go back to Jamaica, and then I was in full caregiver mode. And like the first week of me caregiving, we had a company-wide meeting saying that layoffs were happening. And I literally was sitting there like, I was over it. I was over it. I was absolutely over it. So they had a thing where they had allowed, you know, people to do a voluntary layoff, and they would give you, you know, like a certain severance and everything. And if you didn't take it at a certain time, you still have your job, but there was still opportunity for you to get laid off. And if you were laid off during that period, you'd have a lower severance, you know, and etc. And so a lot of my coworkers and a lot of people that I knew in the company were leaving. And if I'm keeping it a buck, I really do feel like I still would have had a job if I stayed just because of how many people were leaving. However, I sat with myself one night and I was like, I have to take this. Like I have to take the layoff. I have to take the severance package. And the reason I did that was because if I'm being so for real, like we were having like slow seasons. So I was very grateful for that in terms of work and everything. But there was a point where like I wasn't even working for like a whole week. Like I would just be online and take care of my mom. Like, and it was just getting to the point where like I could not focus on what I needed to focus on because I I was just really just trying to make sure my mom was okay and she was breathing and she was alive, you know? And it was a lot. And so that first week I had took the severance. I had continued for another week to caregive for my mom, try to figure out unemployment, and just try to live as best as I could. And then the week after that, my mom ended up passing. And I genuinely was like, God, why? Why are you doing this to me? I was like, I was really just trying to figure out why. And I had always imagined what the pain would feel like. Do y'all ever do that too? Like I had always like kind of thought about how I would act or how I would feel when she would pass. And it's like none of what I rehearsed in my head happened. Like I was just numb for a long time, a long time. And I'm so happy that I have a great support system on my dad's side and from my old church family because I am a pastor's daughter. Two pastors, both my mother and my father. I have a very complex relationship with my mom's side of the family. And so during that time, I was just numb and I felt all types of used and abused and ain't nobody giving any F's about me. And genuinely, part of me wants to think that it's not true. Another part of me knows that Jamaican culture, if anybody knows anything about Jamaican culture or just international people or Caribbean people, but Caribbean people especially, specifically if we niching it down, Jamaican people, like it's really hard for them to like show affection and love and everything. And so I had a really hard time dealing with it. Like if anybody knows the Jamaican tradition of like a nine night, we did like a nine night over WhatsApp and we kind of like went around on the phone talking about like we basically were thanking people for like, you know, helping her and being there for her and stuff like that. And did y'all know like not one person ever like acknowledged that I helped my mom, that I caregived for my mom, that I talked on the phone with my mom. Like not one person acknowledged that I was a caregiver for my mom. And that hurt me because I'm not gonna call anybody out in case they end up watching this, maybe. But there was one family member that had shouted out one of my cousins, and it's no shade at all because I love this cousin and like they did do a lot for my mom. However, they were like, oh, this person took him to the doctor. Okay, so we just not gonna admit that we're just not gonna acknowledge that I had spent months of my own time caregiving and then going back to Charlotte and then coming back and you know what I mean? But at the same time, like they had never seen that. I don't really talk to them, but it still hurt. It still hurt. And this is for another day, but what I do want to, I am telling you this and expressing this to you because the grieving process is so weird. And when other people are grieving and mourning with you, it really shows their ass. It really does. And they may not mean it, but it really shows their ass. Like the amount of people during that time that have asked me for money from my family, but I have other people. Again, I have friends, I have church, like old church members that were giving me money, extending me condolences, calling me, being there for me. Like that, they felt more like family than my mom's side of the family. Again, my dad's side of the family showed more warmth than my mom's side. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's culture. I don't know if it's trauma. Ooh, that scared me. It was the ice maker. I don't know if it's trauma. I don't know what it is. But all I can tell you is that it really hurt me. And if I didn't have those other people, if I didn't have a strong support system of other people that I could lean on, I don't think I'd be here today. I really don't. But nevertheless, she had passed in November. Because I remember I left my job on the 10th. I believe she passed on the 20th. It was before Thanksgiving. And just like with my dog, I was like, throw all the holidays away. I didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. Well, I kind of did, but I celebrated it in the house with my best friend who lives with me. So I did like a cute Friendsgiving. I didn't really celebrate Christmas like that. And I don't even really know if I celebrated New Year's. Honestly, I dissociated the whole time. I really was just like, throw everything away. Throw the whole holiday away. Don't talk to me. Like, that's how it was. I was just trying to get through the funeral. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, my grief doesn't start until the funeral ends. I feel like funerals are for other people, but they're not for me. My grief starts when the funeral ends. And I feel like that's exactly what happened because like I said, I really held everything in. The funeral was in December. And it was really late because my dad was in the military and my mom specifically wanted to get buried with him. So we had to wait on the military's time for the burial. So we were trying to align the funeral, like the actual funeral date with the burial date so that they could be on the same day. So it was a good amount. It was maybe like 2 or 3 weeks out from her death. And so yeah, during that time, I just had to plan things. I had to deal with our family members arguing and not liking each other, and then they have to call me. Like, girl, it was too much. It was too much. And so I just wanted everything to end. So we had the funeral. It ended, and my grieving began. And right now I'm gonna keep it real with you. Right now we are in April. I still don't have a job. I'm still in Maryland. I'm still without a mom, still without a dad. I'm an orphan, don't have any siblings. And it is very hard. And I'm not gonna say I've gotten over it, not in the slightest. But what my therapist and I have been talking about is the fact that I have mourned multiple things. I have mourned the move, you know, that is a loss because I am no longer where I was before, and frankly, I don't like Maryland, so that is a loss. I am grieving that. I am grieving what once was, and when I say that, I'm grieving my mom in so many ways. I was already grieving her as a caregiver because I had to see her decline. I was grieving when the actual loss happened. And then there were parts of me that also was grieving what could have been. What could have happened if she was healthier? What could have happened if, I don't know, I lived, like there's just so many things, And then on top of that, I'm also grieving the loss of my job, the loss of stability, the loss of comfort, because I really did love that job. And so I feel like I had everything and I feel like I lost it all. And some days I wake up and I really feel that, and I cry and I try to figure out what went wrong and how can I get it back. But there is another part of me, and my therapist and I had actually talked about it in our last session, and it's the fact that just like COVID, this is my new normal. I can't get my past back. Even if I were to get my job back and go to North Carolina, or even get a new job and head straight back to North Carolina, I don't have my mom. I am a different person. Honestly, the whole part of the funeral and helping it, I am a completely different person than who I was in November of 2023 when I had a job and I had a mom and I just so happened to move back to Maryland. I was a different person in October when I had a mom and I had a job and I lived in North Carolina. I am a completely different person to even who I was last week. And I can't get any of that back because we move forward and we don't move behind. So, genuinely, I give you my story part as a dump because as much as I don't know who is going to watch and who is not going to watch this is therapy for me. I'm just going to get it out. But if you made it all the way till this end, one, thank you. But two, know that if you're going through any part of what I'm going through, this is our new normal. And that is okay. And it is okay to not feel okay. It is okay to wake up and be angry about what you had lost. It is okay to cry about what you feel like you have been robbed and what you feel like was taken away from you. But what I will say is, please don't dwell on the past. I, me, you, we have to move forward. And you don't have to run to do it. You could baby crawl. You could roll like a sausage. But you don't have to run. It's not a rush. Child, this thing is dying. Oh my goodness. I don't know how long I've been talking for, but I'm gonna wrap this up because this editing is not gonna be fun. But that's really my story, guys. I just wanted to tell somebody, if you're really going through anything that I'm going through, just know that it gets better. And I am telling you from a person that literally yesterday woke up and was like, is it gonna get better? But I woke up today and I feel a little bit happier. And if there's anything that you can get from this video, just remember that thoughts are like the wind. They come and go. I have that tattooed on me from a meditation that I did like 4 years ago, but it really is true. Thoughts, seasons, intentions, trials, the goods, the bads, it's like the wind. It comes and goes. And maybe you're like me and you're in a season where everything had to fall so that you can rebuild yourself up again. And you may not know what the fuck you need to rebuild, but I just want to tell you, when you do figure it out and you do build up that thing, it's going to be beautiful. Also, I really do want to make more grief content because I was on TikTok, I was on YouTube, I was on all the things, really just trying to figure out who I could relate to and who was going through what I was going through. Because when you're in this season, it feels so lonely. But I do just want to tell you again, like, if you're dealing with the grief of any sort, you are not alone. There is a community here for you. I am here for you, and we are going to get through this. Please leave a comment down below if any of this has resonated with you, if you want to share your story, if you want to, let me know how you are feeling today. And if you made it all the way to this video, put in like 3 hearts in the comments. I just want to see who showed up and showed out. But yes, child, let me go before my battery dies. But thank you so much for listening to my story. I really hope that this resonated with you, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.